Hey there, and welcome to the In the Business podcast. I'm your host, Juan Alanis, and I'm glad that you're here. Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you've been enjoying these conversations that we've been having. This season, we decided to invite a lot of entrepreneurs and folks from different walks of life, different industries, to have conversations with us, to tell us a little bit about their experience, and hopefully for us to gain some insight into the business of their business, the business of what they do for a living. Our next guest for today is somebody that I'm pretty excited to talk to, and I'm going to read you a little bit about who he is. I'm talking about Wilfred LaSalle. He is an American actor, film director, producer, and screenwriter. His accolades include International Film Festival awards for his short film titled Hillo II, and he began his film career later in his life during his mid-30s and founded his own production company called Salle Productions. His directing credits include Hillo II, and his first full feature film titled Graves. For his short film Hillo II, he won multiple awards, which include Best Debut Director at the Best of Us International Film Festival. I think I said that wrong, in Italy, and the Best Film at the Madras International Film Festival in 2020. So I'm excited for you all to hear this conversation that I'm about to have with Will, or Wilfred. We'll find out from him what he prefers to be called. But thank you for being back, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Do you prefer Will or Wilfred?
You can call me Will.
Will? Okay. Awesome. Well, I already talked a little bit about you in my intro, so we won't go into that. But I think it would be great for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and you know what you do. I know I've read a little bit about your bio to our listeners, but it'd be great for you to tell us from your firsthand, kind of a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I started my journey with LaSalle Productions back in 2019. I had no film experience. I didn't go to any fancy film school. I certainly didn't know. I certainly didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had a vision. So I created LaSalle Productions in 2019, and I had hired a production company at the time to produce my first film, which would be called Hillo. I run social media ads for different companies. I am a content creator and a filmmaker.
And what was it at that in 2019 that made you decide to go kind of down this path? Because I know, reading your bio, I know you've done a few things, but I think you also were a corrections officer who worked at Rikers, which I thought was pretty interesting and a little bit of a different path from where you are now.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I worked on the infamous Rikers Island. I am a former New York City correction officer, and yeah, it was a pretty big journey, a pretty big leap for me personally and spiritually. I
Mm.
was in the gym back in 2019, and I immediately had this vision of like all these images of like me wearing this red jacket and two detectives. So I left the gym. I didn't even
Mm.
finish my workout. I went
Okay.
home and immediately started writing the script for what will become Hilo, hired a production company, and we went out to Shelton, Connecticut, which is not too far from me. And
Hmm.
we filmed the entire movie, which was only 10 minutes and 44 seconds. It was a short. We released it on YouTube. And then it was kind of like it trickled down. I just started making a film every year. That kind of became my mantra as I've evolved as a filmmaker.
Now, what is the significance of the red jacket and the to the is that connected to the movie Hilo?
It is. So
Yeah.
it's funny. I'll tell you something funny. So I was at a store. I don't know if you guys know Zara's. Do you
Yeah.
have a Zara
Yeah.
by you?
Yeah, we do.
So
Mhm.
I went into the Zara store and I saw this red jacket and I was immediately drawn to it, like spiritually. You know, I'm Hispanic, so you're Hispanic, right? So you get that
Yeah.
like that inner like spiritual feeling where something just feels like it talks to you.
Mhm.
And at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, she thought it was the ugliest jacket she's ever seen. She goes, "I won't even be seen in public with you if you buy that jacket." She was like, "If you buy
Oh,
that
wow.
jacket, I'm never going out with you." I said, "All right, if it's my size, it's meant to be. I'm buying it." So I
Mm.
went, bought the jacket, and I said, "This jacket's just going to be a part of something bigger." I just had a vision for it, and we shot Hilo and Hilo 2 and Hilo 3, and it's always been a part of my character. So I just thought
Mm.
it was an integral part of the film. So when people see the red jacket, they immediately associate the red jacket with my character in Hilo.
Okay, got it. And what is tell us about the film itself. What is the film? What's the premise of it, or what's the synopsis of that film?
So Hilo, the first Hilo is about two detectives. It's George Rivera and myself. I use my real name, Wilfred LaSalle. They're
Mm,
corrupt detectives. What happens in the film is basically at the end, it's revealed that George Rivera is the actual leader of the clown gang. So that is made aware in the post-credit end scene at the end of Hilo. You see two clowns come into the vehicle, and then he
mm.
puts on the mask, and there's a detective who witnesses everything and calls it into the lieutenant. And it
Oh
kind of
wow.
ends with that cliffhanger. And
Okay.
then when you go into Hilo 2, the story gets a little bit deeper. It's kind of a redemption arc for my character trying to undo the wrong that he's done. Uh,
Mm,
and then that trickles down into Hilo 3, which becomes a even bigger film. So they've progressively got longer and better as I've
okay.
evolved, So I think it was pretty much like everyone who saw the film was like, oh, that's Hilo or Hilo. I said, yeah, however you pronounce it.
Well, we pronounced it at Hilo at the beginning, so I'm glad we pronounced it correctly.
Yeah.
But how long was the first one? How long was the first film? And I guess the second part to that is like you said you didn't have any experience and you went home from the gym and you started writing this. So
Mhm.
to talk to us about that process of saying I'm going to write this and having the vision, and then what was that like without having the background of like how to write a screenplay?
It was pretty intimidating. I got to be honest with you. I didn't know what I was going to do. I certainly had no direction of what I wanted to do. But
Mm,
I guess as I started writing the film, the ideas started flowing. I started the creativity started to move and move, and I was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to write this script. I wrote it in less than about 2 hours, and then I immediately hired this production company who had all the cameras and everything else. We went out, we filmed it, but it was challenging because I don't have any film experience. I didn't know where to even start. I just knew that I had to get this out. It was a vision that I had here, and I wanted to write it down and just transform it onto the big screen. So it was definitely challenging. It had its challenges as it was. We filmed with no permits, which we filmed guerrilla style with independent films. We had
right.
several cops. I had several interactions with every film that I've done. I can assure
Mm,
you, it's been crazy.
okay.
But the amount of risk that we take here at LaSalle Productions is just uncanny. It's just something that we do. We stand out from most other independent filmmakers. There are many talented independent filmmakers, but what sets us apart is the fact that we're revolutionizing independent filmmaking. And
Okay.
what it means is that we're stepping outside the box. We're shooting
Okay.
with no permits. We're shooting on the Cross Bronx Expressway. We're shooting on highways. We're shooting every dangerous scene that you can possibly think of. These films are not shot safely in a park or down a street. We're shooting on highways. We're shooting with full police uniforms. We're shooting out there, and I mean, it's a lot of exposure. It's a lot of risk taking here at LaSalle Productions. But uh, it was just an experience for me. I think that it was just something that I just knew I had within, and I had to just do. It like kind of just like came to me.
Now, what are the implications of doing it that way? Like you said, more guerrilla style, where you're kind of like doing it, and you're not really, you're just kind of winging it, or not winging. Maybe that's not the right word, but you're kind of out there, taking risks and making it happen. How do you? What are the implications of doing it like that?
To me, it sets us apart from everyone else.
Mm,
A lot of people play it safely. A lot of people are
mhm.
not going to take the risks that we take. So I assume more liability when we film these dangerous scenes. The cast certainly trusts me. There's a level of trust between myself and the cast members and the actors who are in these scenes. And I always speak to them before and I say, hey, listen, are you comfortable with this? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, I'm comfortable. I'll do it. And to me, it's just you have to take the risk, right?
Mm.
If I take no action, then I know the result. There won't be any change. But if I take an action, then they can be something else. So that's
Now, is it
pretty
the type of
much.
thing where, like, legally, like, you could get into, like, any type of, like, issues, or is it just that you don't have a permit to, be filming and you're kind of filming ad hoc, out in the streets or whatever?
It's both. Well, it's the
Mm,
fact that permits cost, depending on where you want to film. I wanted to film in a courtroom, and that was pretty expensive. So,
mm,
we do this with no budget. So the
okay,
actors are not paid monetarily; they're paid through reels. So whatever footage they get that they shoot with me, that's their method of payment. They're all contracted. They all know this. So it's kind of both. We're limited on the resources that we have. We have no resources. I'm shooting these films essentially broke in the
mm,
industry. There is no budget. I am the budget. I'm working two jobs to fund these films. I am working night and day to make sure that these films are the highest quality I can possibly make them. They don't look like independent films. I mean, from what I've been told and people who see these films, they think I have a 30-man production team. That couldn't be further from the truth. You know, the actors who aren't in the scenes are actually boom operators, or they're doing script supervisor, even when they're, so it's like a buddy system. It's a
Mm.
family, essentially, is what it is. But it's the risk taking. It's the fact that I want to step outside the box. I have to do something that separates myself from everyone else.
And is the goal to kind of stay that way, or is the goal to eventually get to the point where you achieve some type of well, I don't know if it's box office success, but some type of level of success where you're able to then not have to cut as many corners. Is that the goal, or do you anticipate that you would want to stay kind of doing things the way that you are now?
The goal is definitely to get a budget so I can pay the actors, because I have so much talented actors, so many talented actors and actresses,
Hmm.
from Los Angeles to Pennsylvania to Long Island, from all walks of life.
Hmm.
Yeah, that is definitely the goal. I mean, we just got on Tubi. It took me almost a year to get on Tubi. We're on Prime. We're going to be on Peacock in about 6 months. Now, all of this stuff, like, to me, it's easier to get on Prime than it is these other big networks. The biggest,
Mm.
to me, the mecca of all is Netflix. But Netflix has a lot of different restrictions on what you can do, and what they want the format of the film to be. But yes, to answer your question, I want to be able to get a big budget, because if I can do what I'm doing now with no budget, even if a company say, "Hey, we'll give you 500,000," oh, now I can shut streets down.
Hmm.
Now I can get permits to film in these places and not have to improvise. Like for Hilo 3, we shot a jail scene inside of a school. We made it look
Hmm.
like a jail scene. You would never
Okay.
even know. If I didn't, if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
saw it, you'd be like, wow, this looks like an actual jail. And you just get creative when you have no money, when you're broke, and you have to make do with what you have. I think you're forced, your back is up against the wall, and you're just forced to get creative as you go.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that's really interesting. That's why I'm asking you about that, because I think it's a really interesting perspective. I hadn't fully realized that, kind of this part of your business. Um, so I'm really fascinated by that. The fact that you're able to kind of make things happen. What do you attribute that to? That was kind of the way that you decided you were going to make it happen. And again, just going back to the making the decision and then kind of going into this. How did you know what steps to take? To be able to kind of navigate and be able to actually be taken serious.
I think it's just trial and error. To be honest
Mhm,
with you, I think at every film, I'm constantly growing, evolving, and learning from the last film on what the do's and don'ts are.
mhm,
And I think that once you keep doing this long enough, you start picking up on those things. And I think those things are very important to my growth, the growth of each film as we continue to go on. Uh, and it's just something that's always been embedded in me. I'm from the Bronx, born and raised. I think that it's a certain grit when people come from the Bronx. You have all these different interesting stories and diversity. And I think that that's also helped too, where I'm from.
mhm.
It's a different beast out here, in the Bronx in New York, and it's just it's always been something that I've always wanted to do. Even as a child, I've always loved film. I've always been fascinated. I used to see these films and just like, oh my god, this is so amazing. And then when you
Mm,
actually do it, you realize that when you actually film it, it looks nothing like when you see it on TV. And I think that
right.
was more like my thing too. It was more like, wow, like this is really awesome. Like how you can just create it, and when you're watching it from a third person point of view, it's like, wait, this doesn't look anything like, it's fascinating to me. It's something that
Mhm,
I'm obsessed with. I love filmmaking. I love telling these stories that I have. I love creating these characters, and people enjoy them. I mean, I get a lot of feedback from people now. When I first started, people were like, now that I'm my fifth film in, they're like, wait, this guy's got something going on. He's making a full feature film every year on it with no budget, and
mhm.
self promoting, putting these films on Prime, getting them on Tubi. I mean, sending emails to news organizations and just trying to get us as much press as I can possibly get us, because the actors and actresses are the most important key to the success of my company. Without them, this company wouldn't exist.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah, no, go ahead. I was going to say, I want to go back to what you said at the beginning, that you wrote your first film in about 2 hours. Now, I think a lot of people sometimes get stuck on, is it the right format? Is it am I missing this? Am I missing that? They kind of want it to be in everything that's correct. I have to imagine that, having never written a screenplay, that maybe it wasn't in the exact format that it should have been, or that according to most filmmakers or film schools, like you said, maybe fancy film schools, it was supposed to be formatted in a certain way. How did you get that to translate over to the people that maybe were more in tune, more familiar with the industry, like the actors and maybe some of your production crew?
So I immediately I started writing it down on regular notepad paper. I said I just, as long as I got the ideas down, to me that was the most important thing. It didn't matter about the format of what it looked like. As long as the ideas were translated to the paper, I could always put that into a script format. And actually, I
Mm,
found an app on online that's called Script Duet,
mm.
and that is, you can actually, if I write everything usually in my notes on my iPhone, and then I could just translate it to the app. Writer's Duet is
Wow.
what it's called. It's called Writer's Duet. So if
Writers do
anyone
it.
needs it, it's a
Okay.
free app. It's a free app, and it'll literally give you an action, and it translates into script format. So that was done
Nice.
much later. But I think the most important and vital piece was just writing down the ideas. Sometimes I would write the ending of the film first. If that's what I saw, if that was the vision that I had envisioned in my head, then I would just write that first and then just figure it out as I go. It's kind of just always been figuring it out as I've gone film after
Okay.
film.
And that first film again, how long was it? What was the length of your film?
It was 10 minutes and 44 seconds. It's on my YouTube channel,
And
Hilo.
how long did it take you to produce that?
So to film it, we
Uh-huh.
filmed that in an entire day. That took 15 hours of shooting,
Wow.
and editing took me about 2.5 to 3 months
Okay.
just for that film.
And then once you had that first film, what was your next step? Like, what did you do at that point? What you did in terms of like getting connected or getting it out there? What was the next step there?
So I got a lot of feedback from it. I wasn't used to the criticism. I think that was mostly the thing. I think that I wasn't ready for the criticism. I was just like,
Mm,
my fiance, she's very honest with me. And I remember her telling me, she goes, listen, this feels more like an extended trailer. She goes, I'm just going to be honest with you. She goes, you have to do better if you're going to
mm,
continue to do it. And that really, really resonated with me because she's very honest. And
mhm,
I said to myself, okay, I wasn't happy. It's something I didn't want to hear, but I had to hear it because you need criticism to grow. And I think that's huge. And a lot of people at that point, I wasn't ready for it. I couldn't take it. But I think that it helped me along the way because now it's like, okay, I made a film like this. I had to listen to everyone's feedback. No matter if it was negative, positive, no matter if they've never done filming, I still listened to it. Did I entertain
mhm,
most of it? Somewhat, depending on who was giving that criticism to me and where they are in their life, if they're in the industry. But uh, it was more of an extended trailer. And
mm,
when she told me that, I said, "You know what? You're right." She goes, "There's not really much story. I'm a little confused." I said, "All right, I got to make Hilo 2." So we went to
mm,
Hilo 2, and that was 32 minutes. And that was the first film that I got on Prime. It was probably the most important film
mm.
that I've ever had, that I've ever done, because it was the first film that got us on Prime, and it felt like an actual short film.
Now, how much time elapsed between that first film and that second film being on Prime? How much time was
Every
in between
every
there?
year, every year I
So
do
it
a
was a
film.
year
So
later.
yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
2020 Hilo was released.
Mhm.
2021 Hilo 2 was released. 2022 Graves was released. 2023 Hilo 3 was released, and now 2024 Oculus will be released. Do a film a year.
And in terms of getting it on Prime and, maybe some other platforms, what was the process to do that for you?
So I had to do a lot of Google researching. You can upload your film directly to Amazon Prime. A lot of people don't know this. If you go to Video Prime Direct online,
Mm,
you just need the formats. You have to put, I think, two posters. You have to buy captions, and when you buy the captions, you have to, obviously, you pay for them. They do all the captions for the film. That is something you need in order to upload
mhm,
posters, sizing, things of that nature. Now, to get on Tubi and all these other platforms, that was a different entity. That was called Film Hub, and they
mm,
also they're an online distributor. They distribute to Netflix, to Peacock, all different films every month. Now, that was a process. the
mhm,
easiest the easiest platform to me was Prime. Everything else was pretty hard because you have to have certain, they're very strict on what they want, the sizing of the posters. Took me an entire year to get
mm.
Graves on Tubi.
And what about, Peacock? You said I think you mentioned you're gonna be on Peacock soon.
Right.
Is
So
that
there so right now I'm still speaking to Film Hub, and they
mhm,
they still have to get Hilo 3 onto Tubi. There's some issue with the caption. So it'll be pitched to Peacock in about 6 months from now.
okay. And Film Hub, is that kind of like a, like a broker of sorts that kind of goes between that negotiates with all the different networks for you, or
Yes.
how? Yeah.
They're an aggregator. So
Okay.
what they do, they're free. So if anyone who has an independent who films and has their and wants to get their films on there, you go to filmhub.com and then you upload your film from there. It's free. It's just the posters. The posters, there's captions you need. It's
Hmm.
more detailed than Prime. It's a lot more detailed and it takes a lot longer. I think it took me after I submitted the film, it goes through what's called QC, which is quality
Mm.
control. If they
Hmm.
fail you on the third time, they disqualify the film and they're very strict
Mm.
about it. They'll tell you, you failed twice. Check this poster. Check this. It'll tell you in red what you need, and they're just very strict because they're sending out to at least I would say about 100 distributors, and that's Hulu, Peacock, Netflix, you name them, Roku, Apple TV, everything. We're even on Rotten Tomatoes now, which was something really hard to do. One of my films
Mm.
actually made it to Rotten Tomatoes, which is Graves. I couldn't believe it. A friend sent it to me. He said, "You know, you're on Rotten Tomatoes." I said, "Get out of here." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I
Mm.
Google." He goes, when I googled you, I saw Graves on there, and they have the poster and everything." And I said, "Wow, look at that." That you
Now,
know,
and your film Graves is the one that was also award winning, right? Is that the one that you went to a few film festivals? It sounds like, and took home some awards.
I did. I took home awards for Hilo 2, for Graves.
Okay.
Hilo 3 still in the film festivals. They're taking home some awards as well. But yeah, Graves was the film that really, really got my company on the map. Uh,
Okay.
there was so many different critics writing reviews on us. Movies and Mania, Adrian Smith, who reviewed the Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman, he wasn't
Mm.
happy about it. But I mean, he didn't give us such a great review. But listen, any press, whether it's bad or good, is still press. That's how I look
Right.
at it.
And tell us about that movie Graves. What was that about? What was the movie about?
So Graves is about a police officer named Mark Brody. He's a Graves police officer. His wife is murdered, and when his wife is murdered, we find out that later on it's one of the crime bosses, Salvatore Marcello. Him and his wife are walking. They ended up bumping into something that they weren't supposed to see. She kicks a bottle over. He's killing somebody that did something to him, and he ends up going after Brody. Brody doesn't find this out till much later. My character, Michael LaForte, has a crew. We wear president's masks. We're doing heists all over the city, and it's like kind of all collides into one. And at the
Mm.
end of the film, Mark Brody and my character, there's a big decision that has to be made. He has to make a big choice between catching me or saving his partner, and
Mm.
it's intense. It was an hour and 27 minutes, and to me, to this day, everyone thinks that's the best film that I've made.
Mm. And how long of a production period was that one?
That took me 8 months to film. We
Oh
filmed on
wow.
weekends. That was shot in 2021. We were editing for about 5.5 to 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely very involved at this point in the film industry, where or if you're shooting for that long and editing for that long. So, what does the future look like? What's your vision in terms of what's next, or where you see yourself, where you want to go?
I want to be the greatest independent filmmaker in the world. That
Mm.
is that is that is without a doubt, undeniably. I mean, no one is doing what I'm doing to the level that I'm doing it. I mean, when I tell you
Mm.
that these films take everything out of me. A lot of people don't see that. What they see is they see the end product, but they don't see the sleepless nights, the nights that
Mm.
the summers that I give up, the vacations that I give up, the time with my fiance that's sacrificed, the stress, the money involved. They don't see any of that, and they're not
Mhm.
supposed to see it. But uh, I'm obsessed with this. And the
Mm.
future for LaSalle Productions, we have a brand new film called Oculus that's coming out. It's on my shirt here. Uh,
Mm.
this film has been gaining a lot of press. I had some articles written on it. I was just on News Network, Bronx Nets Open. We discussed about they had me discuss the film. This
Right.
film is the longest film of the LaSalle Productions genre. It's about 2 hours. It's going to premiere April 15th of this year,
Mm.
2024, on Prime. We're having an actual premiere in a movie theater on March 7th with the whole cast and crew and their family. They're going to get to screen the movie in a private screening. Uh,
Nice.
and then the next film, I actually got a surprise for them. I don't want to give it away, but they're going to see a new trailer from another film that's coming out in 2025.
Mm.
Every year, we're going to make a new movie. The next movie after Oculus is Security Guard. After Security Guard, we're going to make a movie called The Veteran. And then
Mm.
after that, we're going to make a prequel to Graves called Gravestone. So the next three
Mm.
films are pretty much, I already have that lined up. And then from there, I'll see where it goes. If there's something else I feel I want to do, I'll do it. But I'm sure I will.
Mm. And now from a perspective of like inclusivity, I think a lot of conversation is still had, I think, today about, the lack of, or the need for additional filmmakers of color or films that are relevant to communities of color. What are your thoughts on that?
LaSalle Productions, uh, I'd say 80% of my production are African American actors, Latino and
Mm,
African American. I
mhm,
have actors that are firefighters. That I have an actor who actually survived the plane crash named Lance Theobald Jr. He actually survived the plane crash. It was all
mhm,
over the news. We
mm,
have actors and actresses from all walks of life. I have an actor named Christopher Levine. He's in
mm,
LA. He flies down to be a part of it. Uh, we're pretty diverse, but we're like a family,
mm,
and I do think that uh, there is a need for it. There definitely is a need for it, but I believe it's talent too. I believe it comes down to talent over
mm,
anything. It's all about uh, what the actors bring. You
mm.
know, I may see an actor in a certain role, and it doesn't have to do with their origin. It doesn't have to do that they're Latino or black. It could be white. It could be whatever. But it's what I see or who I see in that role. But our cast is pretty diverse. I'd say 80% of my actors and actresses are African American Latino.
But
Yeah.
do you feel like as a filmmaker that there are more opportunities out there for you, or do you feel like there's more challenges for you as a filmmaker, or is that really not something that you even take into account?
No, I think that I'm creating more opportunities.
Mm,
LaSalle Productions, basically, my company. The reason I hope I created this entire company was to give the actor and actresses a platform where they can showcase their talents. So,
mhm,
unlike, let's say, you have an actor who's doing background work and they're pedestrian number four out of focus somewhere, they're never going to be seen on a big
right.
production like Warner Brothers unless they're
Mhm,
connected or they know someone. Right?
mhm,
The reality of the industry. So, what my company does is we say, all right, I'm gonna cast you even if you have experience, you don't have experience, and I'm gonna give you a role where now we'll put the camera on you and we'll be able to give you a platform. And we're gonna put you on Prime where you can showcase your talents. You don't need experience. You
mm.
just need the level of commitment to start. A lot of people think that they need all these different things. You can shoot a movie on your phone. You just have to take an action. If you know that's my biggest thing. You have to take a risk. You have to.
Mm.
You have to
Yeah, no,
find a
I think
way.
that's good advice, and, but I think, for people that are listening, I'm sure that one of the questions that they're asking, I mean, themselves is maybe, in terms of budget, I know you said that you're doing a lot of this without a big budget, without like, so how do you fundraise? How do you make this happen without having an established budget? What are your, methods to, fund what you're doing?
Well, for one, I had a GoFundMe for Graves, which was one of the most expensive films I've ever made. GoFundMe's, you could do Kickstarters. For me, I work 2 jobs. I'll work overtime, whatever I
Mhm,
need to do to make it happen. I'm shooting. I just Oculus is the first film I've shot,
mm,
so that's saving me on a cinematographer. The other films I had to hire companies and different cinematographers,
mm,
but you got to find a method that works for you. To me, one of the things I always say is when I first started shooting, I had $300,
mm,
$300 to shoot for 15 days of shooting. I had signed a contract with the cinematographer, was charging me
mhm,
about $300 a day, right? And what I did was I only had $300. This guy's thinking I have the rest of the money, but I knew
mhm,
that if my back was up against the wall and I had money to start for just one day, that I knew that I would find a way or I would find an excuse. And sometimes you have to be that extreme. Sometimes if you have a
mhm,
vision and it just works for me, it's just I know that if my
mm,
back is up against the wall, I'm gonna make it happen. My cast depends on me. There's a certain level of trust and respect amongst us, and I can't let them down. You know, and something to me that really resonates is I always tell people you
mm,
have a birth date and you have a death date. You know your birth date, you don't know your death date. Now, what you do in between will ultimately define you.
mm,
So for me, I want to
mhm,
leave my footprint on the world, and I want the
mhm,
world to know I didn't just exist, but I lived, I created, and I
mhm.
made these films.
Mhm. And I imagine that, does that look like that sometimes maybe you have people that have invested in your business or have invested in the film itself that you're like, "Hey, I'm up against the wall and I'm gonna need some funds to
I
finish
have
this
a lot of
project."
pride, and I'll
Is
be
that
honest
kinda
with
like
you, I don't
you
think I've
rely on
ever
your network
asked
at that
anyone
point,
to
or,
fund anything.
um
Uh, but I'm sure if that was the case, I'm sure they would. You
Okay,
know, they would definitely. We all come together. They help me do so many different things. They help me do the boom. They help me do boom operator. They'll
okay.
help me do whatever I need them to do, and they dedicate their time. So to me, the fact that they're dedicating their time, which is very, very precious, and I take that very seriously. I don't want them to ever waste their time. So I make sure that I have everything together as much as I can,
Mhm,
whether it means I have to take on 20 more hats and the stress is at a level where it's a lot for me. I will delegate certain tasks, but money wise, I would never ask them to chip in for to help me make a film.
mhm.
I've never done that, but I mean, not to say that I'm above it. But it's just something I'm prideful, and I would just fund it and figure out a way to do it.
Now, for people, that get to hear this interview, what is some of the takeaways you want them to take away from this conversation? Getting to know you, getting to know LaSalle
I'll
Productions.
leave you with four phrases that's helped me. They're more acronyms than anything.
Mm,
No means numerous opportunity.
mm,
Rejection is just redirection. CEO means change equals opportunity.
mm,
And the last one would be that no matter what happens in life, you have to find a way or you'll find an excuse. You have to. If it's important to
mm,
you, if you're obsessed with it, if it's something that you can't stop thinking about, go for it. Because in the end, you're going to be 80 something or 70 something. Time's going to go by. And no matter what happens, once that time has gone by, you're never going to get that time back. It's the most precious thing you can have is time. And what I choose to do with
mm.
that time is to leave my legacy. So LaSalle Productions is a company, is an innovative company that is revolutionizing independent filmmaking, one film at a time. We're doing this with no budget. If I can do it, you can do it. If I'm out here making these films with no money, you can make it happen. You just have to find a way. And a lot of people say, I don't know how you do this, but I just tell them, listen, I'm driven. I'm passionate. This is all I think about. There's times that I watch trailers all day, just movie trailers on YouTube,
Mhm.
obsessed with the art of creating. It's just something that's embedded in me.
You live and breathe it. It sounds
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, sometimes my fiance has to tell me, she goes, all you talk about are your movies. I say, I love it. I mean, there are plenty of other addictions I can have. If making movies is my addiction, then I don't think it's a bad addiction. You know.
All right, and you mentioned legacy. What do you anticipate, or what do you foresee your legacy that you want it to be?
I want to be the greatest independent filmmaker the world has ever seen. I want people to look at my films and say, "Wow, this guy made this film with nothing. If he can
And
do
when would
this."
you? How would you know that you're there? Is there like a something that you in your mind have an idea, like when you've done that, when you've created a certain production, or do you think you would know?
I think I would be so caught up working on the next film that I would probably would just everyone would be telling me it, and I would just be like, I'm working on this film now. I'm working on that. Or I'm working on this. Or I have this meeting with this person or this news organization. You know what it is for me? It's not all about the destination for me. It's about the journey. It really
Mm.
is. It really is, because that's something that no one can take away from you. Your experiences, uh, your trials and tribulations, your upbringing, the life experience that you have. I think that all plays a big factor in everything that my films are and what I put into them.
Well, Will, this has been really interesting. It's really clear that you're passionate about this. That this is where you need to be. So it's been great to just gain some insights about who you are. What your passion is behind these productions and your production company. So with that, I'll just say thank you so much for being a part of the show and for being a part of our podcast. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.